video is for junior high history. We're covering the highlights from pages 240 to 243. So this is yesterday's reading, but I did not get the video up yesterday because we were working on lesson plans for the next couple of weeks. So now you'll get your highlights and then make sure that you answer your chapter checkup questions for today. So on page 240, highlight as World War II came to an end. You're going to kind of connect that down to the very bottom of the paragraph. And this says, highlight here, nations of the world would work together to settle their problems. This organization would be called the United Nations or the UN. So you're kind of connecting that to as World War II came to an end. So this was their idea. They were determined to accomplish world peace, and they thought that they could complete world peace by forming the United Nations. Highlight that Franklin Roosevelt died before World War II came to an end, and Vice President Harry S. Truman took his place. And Roosevelt was very much in favor of the United Nations. And he believed that they could help people with scientific methods. But Roosevelt didn't understand that science doesn't exactly bring peace. There are many other things that are needed for that. So they formed the United Nations. We've got a picture there of the United Nations headquarters in New York. And the United States gives most of the funding for the United Nations. And keep in mind, this was supposed to end war and accomplish world peace. But since the United Nations was formed in 1945, over 100 wars have been fought around the world. So it is definitely far from accomplishing its purpose. More than 1 billion people have been slaves under communism, and more than 40 million people have been executed by communists. And the United Nations has done nothing to preserve the rights of these people. So next, highlight communism becomes a growing problem. Keep highlighting, although World War II defeated Nazism in Germany, fascism in Italy, and militarism in Japan, it did not defeat atheistic communism in the Soviet Union. Keep in mind that after Germany attacked the Soviet Union joined the Allies. So the other Allies were very reluctant to do anything to antagonize the Soviet Union because they wanted to keep them on their side. So they were afraid to oppose the communistic rule in the Soviet Union for fear of offending them. So they just kind of let it go. And they also allowed Russia to overtake many of the smaller countries of Eastern Europe, meaning that communism spread. Next, let's look at China falling to communism. Highlight the betrayal of China, that's in bold. And then highlight the communist tyrant, Mao Zedong. It's also spelled Zedong. When the communists came to power, they murdered Christian missionaries and many Chinese Christians. At least 800,000 opponents of communism were murdered in just a 4-year span. Chiang Kai-shek, the nationalist leader and also a Christian, fled to the island of Formosa. They set up there the Republic of China, also called Taiwan. So Taiwan has grown and prospered, does very, very well for itself. And Red China, Communist China, became very poor and backward. Under Berlin is divided on page 241, highlights East Germany was divided into Free West Berlin and Communist East Berlin. So all of Germany was divided into East and West. East Germany was controlled by the communists. West Germany was under the rule of the rest of the Allies. So Berlin, the capital city, was located within East Germany, but in spite of that, it was still divided itself into West and East. Because communism took away so many freedoms of the people, many people from East Berlin tried to escape to West Berlin. So many did so that they decided to build a wall to keep that from happening. Because before long, if they hadn't built the wall, then East Berlin probably would have been completely depopulated. Everybody would have moved to West Berlin. That's how bad the conditions were. So next, highlight the Berlin Wall, and it became a frightening symbol of communism. Highlight by 1989, and then highlight it permitted the Wall of Shame to be torn down. So you can see a picture of the wall there at the bottom of the page. And you can pretty easily tell which side is West Berlin and which side is East Berlin. East Berlin is the one with all of the fortifications and the traps there that are designed to keep people from getting too close to the wall. Then we've got the wall itself, and then you have West Berlin. And you've got some nice city streets, some buildings that are intact, and you can look up pictures online of the contrast between West and East Berlin at this time. In West Berlin, there were shops, people were successful, they had new cars, and everything was going really well. In East Berlin, they hadn't even accomplished a lot of the rebuilding after World War II. There were still buildings that were, crumbled down, people were still poor, and they were doing very, very badly. So the wall coming down was a huge, huge deal. And you can look up and read more about that if you'd like to. It's very interesting. On page 242, under Israel Becomes a Nation, highlight in May 1948, Israel once again became a nation. It developed factories, schools, towns, and now, today, it's one of the most advanced countries in the Middle East. Under the Korean War, highlight at the end of World War II, the small Asian country of Korea was divided into two parts. Keep highlighting. The northern part was under the control of the Soviet Union, and the southern half under the control of the United States. Highlight in North Korea, the Russians set up a communist government. And of course, North Korea is still communist to this day. This Korean War started when communist North Korea invaded South Korea. So they wanted to unite it under communism. Note that the UN ordered North Korea to stop fighting, our peaceful organization to end world wars. And did the communists obey? They did not. So in the end, the United States and 15 other nations sent troops. Of course, as with most UN-led wars, the United States sent most of the troops to fight. And with this, General Douglas MacArthur, you'll remember him from World War II, he was sent in here, and he said there is no substitute for victory. He had taken over, he pushed back the North Koreans into North Korea, and if you look at our map there, you can see the line of advance by MacArthur. So he pushed all the way through North Korea up until at some points the border of China. And he wanted permission to invade China and completely wipe out communism once and for all in Asia. But President Truman believed in containment, so that meant that troops had to stay on the defensive and simply prevent communism from spreading further. So it's really sad there, because if MacArthur had been permitted to invade China, well, we probably could have avoided a lot of the problems that we have today, and who knows? Nobody knows, but maybe, just maybe, we would not be dealing with COVID-19 right now if MacArthur had been allowed to invade China. Just a thought. Again, nothing that we can know for certain, but who knows? So that is the last of the things to highlight for today. Again, answer your homework questions from today and let me know if you have any questions. Have a great rest of your day.